He noticed it the first time at a small dinner with her friends. It wasn't loud, not obvious enough for anyone else to react, but it landed hard. She laughed when he spoke, not with him but at him, like his words were a setup for a joke only she could deliver. "He always exaggerates," she had said, smiling sweetly to the table, as if correcting a child. Everyone chuckled politely. He forced a smile too, swallowing the strange tightness in his chest. At first, he told himself it was nothing. People tease, couples joke. Maybe he was being too sensitive. But the moments kept coming, subtle and consistent, like drops of water carving through stone. At a family gathering, she interrupted him mid-sentence, rolling her eyes. "Can I explain it properly?" she said, not waiting for an answer. At a party, when someone asked what he did for a living, she answered for him with a dismissive tone. "It's not that impressive," she added, laughing, while he stood there, suddenly unsure of how to respond. He began to notice the pattern more clearly. In private, she could be kind, even affectionate, but in public, something shifted. It was as if his presence became an inconvenience she needed to manage or minimize. She corrected him, contradicted him, and sometimes outright belittled him, all under the disguise of humor. And every time it happened, he felt himself shrink just a little more. He tried to talk to her about it once. They were sitting in the living room, the TV flickering in the background. He chose his words carefully, not wanting to start a fight. He told her how it made him feel when she dismissed him in front of others. She barely looked up from her phone. "You're overthinking," she said. "It's just jokes. Everyone knows I don't mean it." He nodded slowly, though something inside him resisted the explanation. It didn't feel like a joke when it happened. It felt like being erased. After that, he stopped bringing it up. Instead, he started observing more quietly. He watched the way she spoke to others compared to how she spoke to him. With friends, she was warm and respectful. With colleagues, she was polished and attentive. With him, in public, she seemed almost impatient, as if proving something at his expense gave her a strange kind of control. The breaking point didn't come all at once. It built slowly, layered with every small humiliation. Still, there was one night that finally made everything clear. They were at a large gathering, a mix of her friends and co-workers. The room buzzed with laughter and conversation. He stood beside her, trying to stay engaged, even though he already felt out of place. Someone brought up a topic he was actually knowledgeable about, and for a moment, he felt a spark of confidence. He started explaining his perspective, speaking calmly and clearly. Before he could finish, she cut in with a laugh. "Don't listen to him," she said lightly. "He thinks he's an expert on everything." The group laughed, not cruelly, but enough. Enough for him to feel it. Enough for him to go quiet. He looked at her then, really looked. She didn't seem malicious. She wasn't glaring or angry. She was smiling, relaxed, completely unaware of what she had just done to him. Or maybe she was aware and simply didn't care. That thought hit harder than anything else. Something inside him shifted in that moment. Not anger, not exactly. It was more like clarity. A quiet realization that he had been allowing this pattern to continue, hoping it would change on its own. Hoping she would eventually see him, respect him, value him in the way he had been trying to value her. He didn't say anything for the rest of the night. He stayed polite, nodded when spoken to, and kept his distance. She didn't seem to notice. When they got home, she acted as if everything was normal, chatting about the evening while scrolling through her phone. That night, he lay awake longer than usual. His thoughts were steady, not chaotic. He wasn't trying to justify her behavior anymore or question his own feelings. He simply acknowledged the truth. He felt disrespected, repeatedly, and nothing he had done so far had changed that. The next few days were different. He became quieter, more withdrawn, but not in a sulking way. He just stopped trying so hard. He stopped seeking her approval, stopped jumping in to support her in conversations, stopped filling the silence when things felt off. He focused more on himself, his work, his routines. She noticed eventually. "You've been weird lately," she said one evening. He shrugged. "Just tired." Another event came up, another gathering. This time, he went with a different mindset. He wasn't there to impress anyone or to prove anything. He was simply there. He spoke when he wanted to, stayed quiet when he didn't. And when she interrupted him again, making a small, dismissive remark, he didn't react the way he used to. He didn't laugh it off or try to correct her. He simply stopped speaking and turned his attention elsewhere. It caught her off guard. She glanced at him, expecting some kind of response, but there was none. No smile, no annoyance, just indifference. For the first time, she seemed slightly unsettled. The shift continued over the following weeks. He became less available, emotionally and socially. He stopped attending every event with her. When she asked why, he gave simple answers. "I have other plans. I need some time." He wasn't confrontational, just firm in a way he had never been before. One evening, she insisted he come with her to an important gathering. "It matters to me," she said. He agreed, but something in his demeanor remained distant. The event was crowded, lively, filled with people who knew her well. She moved through the room confidently, greeting everyone. He stayed close at first, then gradually stepped back, observing. The familiar pattern began again. She made a remark at his expense, a light joke, but this time, instead of absorbing it, he simply looked at her for a moment, then quietly walked away. He didn't make a scene. He didn't argue. He just removed himself. At first, she didn't notice. She continued talking, laughing, engaging with others, but as time passed, she started looking around, realizing he wasn't there. Her smile faltered slightly. She excused herself from a conversation and began searching through the crowd. He was outside, standing alone, the cool air a contrast to the noise inside. He felt calm, more than he expected. Not hurt, not angry, just done. When she found him, her expression was different, less confident, more uncertain. "Why did you leave?" she asked. He met her gaze, steady and composed. "Because I didn't want to stay somewhere I'm not respected." She opened her mouth to respond, but no words came out immediately. For once, she didn't have a quick, dismissive answer. She looked at him as if seeing him clearly for the first time. "I was just joking," she said finally, though her voice lacked conviction. He shook his head slightly. It's never just a joke when it keeps happening. The silence between them felt heavier than any argument they'd ever had. Inside, the laughter and music continued, but out here, everything felt still. "I didn't realize," she started, but trailed off. He didn't interrupt. He had said what he needed to say, not to convince her, but to finally stand in his own truth. For the first time, she looked uncomfortable in a way he had never seen before. Not defensive, not dismissive, but genuinely unsettled. It was as if being left alone in that public space, without him quietly supporting her presence, had shifted something for her too. "I thought you didn't mind," she admitted softly. "I did mind," he replied. "I just stopped saying it because it didn't change anything." That hit harder than any accusation. They stood there for a moment longer, both processing the weight of what had been unspoken for so long. Then he turned slightly, as if preparing to leave. "Are you going?" she asked, a hint of urgency in her voice. "Yes," he said simply. "Can we talk about this?" she asked. He paused, considering. "We can," he said, "but not here, not like this." And with that, he walked away, not in anger, not in defeat, but in quiet self-respect. For the first time in a long while, he felt whole, like he had reclaimed something he didn't even realize he had lost. Behind him, she stood alone in the noise of the gathering, the echo of her own words finally catching up to her.